Well, it's my privilege to summarize your Land Trust's accomplishments of the last year as your former executive director. Believe me, it's a privilege. The Land Trust has three pillars of work. It protects land, it cares for the land entrusted to it, and it connects people with nature. And it has been a great year. In the year since we last met, your Land Trust has helped protect hundreds more acres of wildlife habitat, miles of streams in 2 new conservation easements. A conservation easement is a permanent protective covenant on private property. It limits or prohibits development but allows traditional uses. So the 2 new projects, the 2 new conservation easements, one is the Hine family property. I'll tell you more about that later. It's land along Latah Creek. It's part of a 10-mile-long conservation corridor we're looking at over the next 10 years. And if you'll stick around after the remarks, we have maps and pictures on the wall to my right, and I'll be hanging out there talking about everything you want to know about the properties that we've been protecting. The Runquist property, you'll hear more about that later from my friend Robin Miller. It's nearly 300 acres on Priest River, plus a trout stream running through it called Sanborn Creek. And it's part of a 3,300-acre cluster of land with high conservation values. It's pretty neat. Also this year, the Land Trust and, where's Eric? Eric Erickson, oh, there he is. Nominated a terrific 280-acre property called the Troutman Ranch for Spokane County Parks to purchase. It's near 9 Mile Falls. It truly is a missing link between 1,000-acre chunks of Riverside State Park, and it has basalt terraces that step down from the highlands down to the river, touch the Spokane River and the Centennial Trail, and it's the missing link between miles of trails on either side of it. It's visible from 134 miles of county roads and Idaho. We have a map of that over there too, courtesy of Eric. The Land Trust has been working for 10 years to protect that property through people like Eric, through some of the former conservation directors like Asher Renberg, Roger McRoberts, and finally, fingers crossed still, but assuming the deal goes through with the county, we will invite you to come celebrate on the Troutman Ranch sometime next year. That'll be a great victory. There was mention of a transition. I told the board earlier this year that I wanted to step down after 17 years at the helm as your executive director. I wanted to spend more time on the lands and with the landowners. I'm happy to report that the board swung into action, enlisted a headhunting firm, and carefully crafted a profile of what Inland Northwest Land Trust needed in its next executive director, in its leader for the future. And they found it, Gary Shala. I'll introduce him to you in a few minutes, but I couldn't be more pleased. Not least because with Gary as the executive director, I'm now the land guy again. That was most of my work when I started 17 years ago, but the ratio had shifted over time. I'm now your conservation director. I get to work with the Land Protection Committee. I get to work with landowners. I get to work with people like Eric Erickson and other volunteers to identify and protect lands that need protection. We already have 14 new projects underway in the last 8 weeks, I think. So we are off and running. The scenery is going by a lot faster now than it was. And I get to visit all of the lands like yours, that the Inland Northwest Land Trust has helped protect over time. That's 47 places so far, something over 10,000 acres, and growing, and seeing what more we can do to protect land around them and to work with those lands as they transition to new landowners. Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. once said, "Many people die with the music still in them. Why is this so? Too often it is because they are always getting ready to live. Before they know it, time runs out." Well, for me, the music is strong and I'm living it. And my thanks to the board and to Gary for making that possible. I also want to report that this past year, the Land Trust had its first big fundraising event, the Appetite for Conservation. How many of you were there? Thank you all. You made it a great success. It was at Susie Dick's farm. The Land Trust raised over $15,000, and they've announced that they're going to do it again. So if you have your calendars, please mark Sunday, September 20th, 2015 for the next Appetite for Conservation. If you have a little free time or a lot of free time, we would love to have people helping with the committee this coming year to make it as much or even more fun and successful. Also this year, we put on a number of events to connect people with nature, things like mushroom walks, butterfly hikes, dragonfly workshops, all manner of things. If you were on that butterfly walk, can you still smell the mock orange? And can you hear Latah Creek running in the backgrounds? So we're going to do more of that, more connecting people with nature. How many of you know about Reardon's Audubon Lake? Ever been there? Many of you probably helped buy the original property that the Land Trust bought and hung onto and sold to the state. It's 277 acres in the town of Reardon, 23 miles that way. If you're a migratory bird, it's heaven. It's an oasis in the middle of dry country. And bird species and other things stop there. It's their summer place. It's where they fuel up. Well, fast forwards, that was in 2006, believe it or not. Last December, word came down the grapevine that the 150 acres next door was coming up for sale. The out-of-state developer had gotten tired of waiting for the market to come back and was ready to dump it. The property has 11 lakes on it, ranging from under 1 acre to 8 acres in size. Raise your hands if you keep binoculars in your vehicle. Okay, ask these people why this property is worth protecting. Because there are over 200 species of birds and other creatures that call this place home. If you've flown to Seattle in the springtime or the summer, you've probably looked down and seen these incredibly dappled lands with ponds winking up at you. That's this 150 acres right on the edge of the previous 277. But it was at risk. It'll be terrific for wildlife watching and nature photography. The Land Trust stepped up and negotiated a deal to buy the lands so that the developer wouldn't dump it and have somebody else develop it. So we've agreed to purchase the lands, and we're working on all the details of what owning it or owning it on an interim basis would mean. But it's a great project. We will look forward to not just telling you more about it, but getting you out on the lands and seeing it for yourselves. Now, the core of our work is working directly with willing private landowners. I like my blood pressure right where it is. Gary probably does too. People who want to conserve their property's wildlife habitat and its traditional uses for farming and forestry. Often that's through conservation easements with the Inland Northwest Land Trust. So if you're someone who has protected his or her land with a conservation easement, please stand up so we can thank you and acknowledge you. Joan, Jane? All right. Thank you. All right, well now I get to introduce Gary. Gary has been executive director since, how many days? 47 days? September 15th. I knew Gary when he was running the Okanagan Land Trust, and we were working on a regional conference together. So I've known him for a spell. Before that, Gary was with a land trust in Wisconsin. He did international relief work in India and Nepal, and he was in the private sector for 25 years. He started young. As you can tell, I'm thrilled that Gary is here. Gary brings amazing energy to the job. He is full of ideas for building the organization, broadening its base of support, and leading the whole team forwards. He's like a swimmer with his toes on the edge of the pool, and everybody's around him just eager to jump in together. So please join me in welcoming our executive director.
Would you prefer I use the mic rather than just be, yes, okay. It's an honor to be here. Inland Northwest Land Trust has a really long and proud history, and when I look across the room, it's because of this room that we have that really long and proud history, and I'm really honored to be a part of that next venture. That vision for me is not to only continue that reputation, but to actually expand that reputation. You'll see and hear me say a lot of words, especially around collaboration. I think there's so much that we have the opportunity to do, both here in our community, but also regionally, to really become the leader that we already are on an even bigger scale. One of the things that you'll also hear me talk about is and the board has heard this and they shook their heads, is my COMET strategy. And you'll meet one of my COMET members today, but COMET to me is communication, it's outreach, It's metrics. And metrics is what we do, how we do it, and proving that we're going to do it and showing that we do it in the end. Events and trends so that we stay current. And I knew he couldn't do it. He had to get that vest on as soon as he could possibly. I was so proud of Chris not to wear the vest during his presentation today, but he's back where he needs to be, and he's very comfortable in that vest. We're glad to have him there. You know, it's like his blankie. In the coming months, you'll see this Comet team really within such a trusted and experienced staff really bring you some new things. We look to a new website, hopefully before the beginning of the new year, if not just shortly thereafter. You're going to see a new branded look, more opportunities for you to be engaged and others in the community to be engaged through educational events and opportunities to get on the land. You know, I think that's really important. We need to have our feet on the land. We need to get our knees dirty and wet as we kneel down to look at a flower. We need to watch those birds that we're going to see at Reardon. I think it's really, really important that we get people on the land. So I hope all of you will continue to be engaged as we move forward. My door is always open. Come on upstairs to the second floor. I would love to hear from you. I'm just learning, and I'm a really good listener. And it's through all of our efforts and all of our ideas that we can grow. You know, we're listening very closely as we've looking at this Reardon property to a number of people who have different viewpoints and different opportunities and different answers and different questions. And I think it's really important that you, our members, are part of that conversation, because without you, we can't do this. I'd like to take just a second in the next couple minutes here to reintroduce you to our team, to some of the board members that are here and the emeritus if there's some here. So first of all, you've met Chris, 17 years and counting. Vicky, who does truly run the place. Who's been with Inland Land Trust for 13 years. It's tremendous commitment. And Carol, who unfortunately couldn't be here today and is in her 7th year. We're going to lose at the end of the year, but she has been just a tremendous asset in our office, and we'll miss her, and hopefully we'll be able to find someone like her, but she's been a great asset to this organization. Julie couldn't be here today, but Julie's not an employee, but a contractor, does our accounting, and we're looking forward to her engagement. But now I really want to introduce you to one of my comments, and that is Catherine. And Catherine comes to us as our new Director of Community and Investor Relations. She will be one of those people telling the story and telling it in a way that's different and new and exciting. And she's being joined by someone from Durango, Melissa Story, who is our Communications and Membership Relations Director. So she's going to tell that story to you and to expand that membership base. And we think that between the two, we're going to have a whole new and exciting, just great year coming up. In our board, you've met Carl, who introduced us. Carl, can you stand up? Also with us today, John Allen, Michael Kern. Brenda McCracken could not be with us, nor could Andrew McDermott or Rob Holly, but all important members of our board. And since I am so new, I don't know who in our audience is an emeritus board member, but if you are, I'd love to have you stand, and we'd like to acknowledge you. Thank you very much. No, I got Michael. Yeah. I really want to get to the projects and to have you see all the great work that's happened this year. So I'm going to end right now and just say thank you very much. Barb's going to be honored later. Barb is one of our very, very best volunteers, and we couldn't do much of the work we do without Barb. But my sincere thanks. Where we are today is because of the people in this room, and so thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Chris to to talk about our projects. And please, my door is always open. I'd love to hear from you.
Actually, before I talk about projects, I want to tell you a little bit more about me and my new job. Well, actually, as Conservation Director, I figure out where the Land Trust should seek new projects, like along river corridors like Latah Creek, Hangman Creek. I also figure out how possible projects rank in importance so we can choose well. I also gather information in the field about new projects, and I'm responsible for monitoring the 10,000 acres under 47 conservation easements. So I have this amazing new device I want to show you. Could you help me with this? Can you make this? Can I borrow you for a minute? Can you make this do what it's supposed to do?
What do you want me to do?
Make it do the map with the easements on it. So this iPad is amazing, but it's nothing on Eric Erickson. So I'd like to introduce our Volunteer of the Year to you, Eric Erickson. You don't really have to make it work, but you have to stay up here. So Eric has been a Land Trust member and a supporter since, I think, 1999. I met Eric in 1998 on some land that Riverside State Park was thinking about surplusing, and we made that not happen. He teamed up with the Land Trust on some conservation futures projects over the years, and he's helped us with modern computer mapping called Geographic Information Systems, the sort of thing that spits out a map like this thing to my right, with all the dark colors and rivers and stuff on it. So 3 years ago, the Land Trust hired a consultant to build a computer model of our entire area, a GIS, Geographic Information Systems model. 2 years ago, the Board of Directors said, we like what that model is telling us about the conservation value of lands along rivers, lakes, and streams. And that's where the Land Trust is focusing its work. And that's where the 14 new projects are. If any of you have worked with computer models, know that computer models are complicated, they get stale, and they're only as smart as the operator. It's like having a fancy car that only a specialist can drive. So we're going to fast forward to March of 2014. We had the fancy car, we had no competent driver, and we had several flat tires. So the computer model was basically useless for our work. Eric Erickson rode to the rescue. Eric put air in the tires, updated property ownership records for all of our counties, and streamlined it enough so that even I can use it. And this is low tech. I can use it. I use it every week to generate maps and understand where we should work and why. Eric has been volunteering for 2 solid days a week since March as our GIS analyst. His hours are in the hundreds, plus the hours that Eric and I spent on the Troutman Ranch property nomination, dozens more hours arranging field trips, letters of support, some of you provided them, and keeping the Troutman family on board and on the rails. To give you an idea how important Eric is to our operation, he has 2 monitors on his desk. I have 1. Eric also figured out that the Land Trust needed some 21st century technology for monitoring easements and collecting field information about new projects. So with help from Tom Kessler, our Chief Technology Officer volunteer, we bought this iPad, and Eric and Tom loaded it with information and applications. I can't really tell you what all it does, except that it knows where I am, and I can tell whether I'm on a property that I'm supposed to be on or not, and I can gather photos, information, and GPS waypoints. Thanks to Eric, I never get lost anymore. So Eric is amazing. For all that you've done and all that you continue to do, I want to thank you as our Volunteer of the Year.
Thank you.
We have nothing. Eric has a 4-legged assistant, our best behaved intern ever. So we got a little treat for Gloria, too. So.
Thank you.
You want to say anything?
Huh?
You want to say anything?
Well, it's a real honor and privilege and something that makes me feel really good to be able to be associated with INLT. It gives me a real sense of purpose. And it's a delight working with Chris and the other folks. I've been absolutely amazed how Chris has gone from somebody that really pretty much didn't know or have much confidence in his computer abilities to somebody that just wades in there, rolls up his sleeves, and gets it done. And so between Tom and I and Chris, I think we have a really wonderful working group, and we're only just about 10% of the way through really getting it together. So, all right. Thank you.
There are many other volunteers who have contributed hundreds of hours to the Land Trust this year. If you've served on the board or committees or helped Barb with this the fundraising event this year, let's please applaud everybody who's helped, including those of you who have helped in the field. All right, well, on to Stories of the Land. I mentioned the two special places the Land Trust protected this year. One is the Runquist property on Priest River, and the other is the Hine family property on Latah Creek. Here to tell you the story of the Runquist property is my friend and now counterpart, Robin Miller. Robin is the Director of Conservation Programs at the Nature Conservancy of Idaho. So, Robin?
All right, thank you. Well, it certainly is nice to have Chris back in the trenches with me. Well, my name, like you said, is Robin, and I've been working with the Nature Conservancy for the past 9 years. And I can say one of the greatest things about my job are the people that I get to work with, and those include the Land Trust. So this last year, we were fortunate enough to have a family, the Runquist family, decide to gift their property to the Nature Conservancy. It was actually a gift to the Montana chapter of the Conservancy. So they reached out to us because the property is 300 acres and it sits right on the Priest River in northern Idaho. So the Montana chapter reached out to us and said, hey, can you take a look at this, and what do you think really should happen with this property? The family really left it in our hands to figure that out. So as I started looking more into it, it became real clear real fast that this property, these 300 acres, sat at the heart of a network of conservation work and properties, over 3,000 acres that had been protected by the Land Trust, by the tribe, a little bit of work by us years ago. And so this network of lands had come together, and this piece really was a central part of that. So when we started looking deeper into it, we thought about it, and we figured, the best steward for this property long-term in this project is going to be the Land Trust. And I think they're really in a great position to take that on. So we reached out to the Land Trust, and in usual fashion, they were enthusiastic and willing to jump in, and we put our heads together to figure it out. We ultimately worked together to layer the property with a conservation easement. And that easement is held and will be stewarded by the Inland Northwest Land Trust going forward on those 300 acres. And then the property was sold under those restrictions to a conservation buyer, essentially, that's willing to manage the property under the terms of that easement and those protections. That includes ongoing timber harvest according to a plan for sustainable timber management. So the property will continue to provide logs to the mills and jobs in the communities. But more importantly, it will also provide clean water, like Chris mentioned, to the trout in the stream, Sanborn Creek, that goes through it, as well as the fisheries in Priest River right adjacent to it, and all the other wildlife species that use the forest and use that property. So I will say in 9 years of working for the Nature Conservancy and doing conservation work, I've learned one thing, and it's all about relationships. And I will say that from my perspective, there is no better partner out there than the Inland Northwest Land Trust. And I would just say that they do their work with the utmost professionalism and integrity. They bring zero ego to the table, which is so refreshing, honestly. And they come with creativity and just a willingness to do the right thing and an interest in doing the right thing, not only for the land, but also for the landowners and for the communities and for people. And I think it's just a really special thing here with the Land Trust that you have, both with the incredible staff and the work that they're able to accomplish. So for me personally, I am incredibly proud to be considered a partner of the Land Trust, and I look forward to many, many more projects to partner together going forward. So thank you for having me.
It's too bad we don't enjoy working together. Yeah, it's those of you who are looking for a lot of discord and infighting and stuff, that was Tuesday night. This is Sunday. This is the Land Trust. So, I'm here to tell you about the Hine family conservation easement. If you know Latah Creek, also known as Hangman Creek, the site of the hanging is the monument on Kentuck Trails Roads. The land around it and for 300 acres downstream was protected several years ago with Paul Bryant and Carolyn Sayre in a conservation easement that limited development on 98% of their property. Well, in the year 2000, Betsy Jewett and Heather Bateman and I went and visited the landowner upstream. This is how long things take. And they said, you know, we have this land that's been in the family for a long time. It has a half a mile of Latah Creek through it. We farm the land up on the bluff. That's important income. But that wildlife habitat down on the bottom, that's been in the family since the homesteading days. We'd really like to see, they call it the Creek Place, protected forever. They'd had plenty of offers over time from people who wanted to break it up into pieces. Could have been a dozen houses on the property or more, depending on rezones. But they said, we want this land to stay in the family. We want it to stay as wildlife habitat and working farmlands. We want to have a place for the Hine family to gather, so they reserved a 1-acre home site outside of the stream corridors and did a conservation easement land, with Inland Northwest Land Trust. I sort of fast-forwarded through 13 years of back and forth and what would it look like, and like many families, it took some time to decide how they were going to move forward and what would happen to their lands. But we stayed in touch over that time, and when the stars aligned for the Hine family, the Land Trust, we had our pictures from our field trip in 2000. We'd been on the property a few more times. So this 142 acres has a half mile of Latah Creek running through it. I have pictures posted up on the wall that I hope you'll come and look at later on. It has basalt canyons, cottonwood galleries, and streams that come into Latah Creek there. And it adjoins the Bryant Conservation Easement. And it's at one end of a 10-mile-long conservation corridor that we hope to protect the best parts of over the next 10 years. We have 3 conservation easements in that stretch, and we're working with the other 8 or 10 landowners to see what more we can do to keep connecting the dots and protecting the best habitat. Mrs. Hine moved to Seattle this year, so she couldn't be here today, but she asked me to thank all of you for making the Land Trust possible, because it's made it possible for her to keep the land intact and keep it whole. And they're going to keep it in their family and know that the Land Trust ensures that no matter what, it's not going to be what they dreaded, which was 142 1-acre lots someday. So if we could clap loud enough for them to hear in Seattle for the Hine family. And if any of you would like to see the property with me next year, just sign up at the desk and we'll find a time to take a tour, and we'll see if we can get the Hines to show us around too. So part of my work is visiting all of these properties every year and making sure that the easement terms are being lived up to and maintaining relations with the landowner. Any questions about the land we've protected? I can't tell you much about the 14 projects underway because it's really bad luck to talk about them until it's finally happened. But it'll give you a reason to keep coming back to annual meetings and hearing what's transpired. So, Carl, any questions? Broncos? Never mind. Okay. Okay.
So one of the reasons we're here today is that you all received a ballot, and we need to certify, which Carl is going to do for us, and announce the results of our board elections. So, Carl, if you could do that for us, that'd be great.
Make sure I don't announce the wrong people, because there's only 2 people running. Brenda McCracken, who was not able to be here, who was our secretary of the board, and Michael Curran were running. I am pleased to say it was unanimous. Okay, so they got all the votes. Brenda's serving her 2nd term. Michael's joining us for the 1st time. And so they have been elected to your board, and we all thank you for voting.
Vicki, I don't know about the drawing, so can you help me on that? On the door prize drawing? And while Barbara's coming up here, I'd really like to give a thank you to the wonderful music that was our accompaniment for dinner this afternoon. What wonderful singing and what wonderful music. We thank you, Lyle, very much. Okay, am I picking?
Yeah, you can pick. Some of them
See, Carl, things just, people are just like
tell you
thrust into roles here.
Doug Peniel.
Doug?
Okay.
I again want to thank you. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the staff and the board. And I don't know, Carl, if you want to give us an update before we leave or not, but okay, well, ask Siri. While he asks Siri, I'd like to again thank all of you for taking the time out today to come and see us, for all your involvement in the past, and for your upcoming engagement in the future. I think that you'll find that we're going to have a lot of exciting things in the coming year, and we'd love for you to be part of that. So thank you very much for your time today.
I can't see my reflection in the water. I can't speak sounds to show no pain. I can hear the echo of my footsteps, or remember the sound of my own name. Yes, and only if my old true love were waiting, and if I could hear her heart they softly love. Yes, and only if she were